Well, now, happy summer, everybody. I think it's time for a book haul, and since the weather has been calm and cooperative today, I thought I'd come outside, kind of do like excellent books, and who else likes to go outside? I think Outlaw Levi Wallace, he's sometimes outside. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong person. But anyway, I wanted to do an outside for summer, and get some of the ambient sounds of the traffic in the distance and the birds close by. Get out of the house. Get the house smell off of me, as my dad used to say. Maybe get some of the must smell off of these old books that I got here. I have a few more books than I thought I would for this book haul, so it might be a little lengthier, but I find that sometimes the longer the haul, the more fun it is. So let's see what I got. This first set of books is from BookBot. As I've said in the past, there are no local secondhand bookstores in my town that have English books. I went to the secondhand bookstore when I first came to this city to take this job, and the guy just shook his head when I said, "Do you have any English books?" He didn't even say the words no. He just shook his head sadly. So then I went looking for books with Zdenek Buryan illustrations, because you don't have to read those. Anyway, so I got all these from BookBot, which is a sort of an online secondhand bookstore out of Bratislava in Prague. And they deliver, it's almost next day, so it's almost like I went to the store. First up, we got Carla. It's a gold medal. The Deadly Game. It looks like it's one of those where the guy finds a dead girl and then spends the rest of the book trying to figure out who killed her. And that he, he'd play the deadly game. He'd get the army's stinking cannon back, but first he'd quench his thirst for vengeance, cool his white-hot rage in blood. Poor Carla. I mean, I don't know, maybe Carla isn't the one who gets killed, but I get the impression that it is. A friend of mine just sent me an article from The Guardian that this inordinate number of bestsellers in the UK all involve a woman being murdered. So I guess Carla would count as one of those if it was a contemporary piece of fiction. Here's Noel Loomis. Have I read Noel Loomis? I suddenly am wondering. I think I've read one book by Noel Loomis, but what was it? I don't know. And I think I also have one waiting on my to-be-read shelf. Well, now I got two Noel Loomises. I know that he's a Western paperback author of some note. So, The Buscadero. Look here, you know that it's good because the New York Times, the old gray lady herself says, plenty of action, A+. So, a two-gun man in blood-stained New Mexico, he gave them law and order, whether they wanted it or not. Well, how do you like that? That one was a bantam. Here's another gold medal. You know I love my gold medals. The Case of the Laughing Virgin. I don't know anything about this. I bought it entirely because of the title. Her laughter turned into a scream when the fun and games became murder. Oh man, is it another dead woman? Through the subways and slums, down the dirty back alleys, and up into the spotless glitter of the city's wealthiest apartment houses, just a few of the places prowled by Detective Pete Selby and Stan Rader in their heated 30-hour search for a killer. The victim was a guy named Yeager, con artist, gigolo, liar, extortioner, and the likeliest candidate for murder in the whole sprawling city of New York. Maybe it isn't a girl that's being killed. It's a gigolo instead. Well, at least that was the word from the suspects, his mistress, the two-bit floozy, the expensive babe in the Austin Healey, and even the Laughing Virgin. So I guess the Laughing Virgin is a suspect. Now, why would a virgin kill a gigolo? I leave that to you to solve. I got 2 books here, both by Barry Huart. Anyway, last summer, my buddy Mike, for my birthday, gave me The Bridge of Birds by this author. He wrote these 3 books, and I enjoyed it so much that I went and bought the sequels, The Story of the Stone and 8 Skilled Gentlemen. These are... How can you describe, at least Bridge of Birds? I have not read these yet. But I imagine that they are the same because they are they're sequels to Bridge of Birds. The idea of these is that these are sort of adventures that take place in an ancient China that never was. That this author really fell in love with Chinese folklore and Chinese mythology, and so he kind of created his own folklore and mythology, deeply inspired by it, by Chinese stories. And he wrote these, I mean, they're pretty thick. This one here is 289 pages, but they're just kind of these really very madcap, comical adventures in ancient China with magic and some monsters and mystery. And it was, I have to say that Bridge of Birds was a ton of fun. So I'm looking forward to reading these. Speaking of magic and mystery, look at this. The novelization of Ghostbusters showed up in that store. Who or what can deliver New York from the dreaded tyranny of the paranormal? I've obviously seen this movie a number of times, and I don't think of the paranormal as being this tyrannical overlord over New York, but maybe Larry Milne? Larry Milne? Larry writes it that way. Why did I get this? I don't know. Maybe the novelty of it? Maybe I want to see how they describe the scene with the... Oh, there's photos on the inside. The scene with the librarian ghost. But there's some pictures from the film. There's Slimer or the... I had a Ghostbusters storybook as a kid, and I hadn't even seen the film. It was sort of like one of those things you go to another kid's birthday and they give you this gift pack, and somehow I had a picture book of Ghostbusters was in the package for the, like, thank you for coming to my birthday party. And you know, this ghost was not yet called Slimer, but he was called something like the Voracious Spud or something like that. Oh, see, there's a librarian. You can find out how they talk about that. I wonder how Venkman's jokes will translate in prose form. Oh, and look, at the end of every chapter they have a little Ghostbusters logo. So maybe this is going to be great. I enjoy the film. I haven't seen it in a few years, but maybe I shouldn't count Ghostbusters out. Maybe those were €2 well spent. Here's Alistair MacLean. I have not yet read any of his books, and I have, I think, 2 of them now. Fear is the Key. And I kind of like this because from the image here, it looks like we've got a submarine that is going to explore a plane at the bottom of the ocean. That's not something you see every day. Also, there is a giant ripped piece here where a sticker used to be. So thank you, previous store that sold this book and owner who did not take care. And then somehow there's a little, it almost looks like there's a little frowny face here. That's how I feel about that tear on the sticker. A cruelly exciting novel. Cruelly exciting. Cruelly exciting. A cruelly exciting novel of ruthless revenge set in the steel jungle of a great oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico and on the seabed below it. Guns, gangsters, sudden death, terrific action on land and under the sea. Fear is the key, has a plot that will require a lot of willpower to stop you looking at the last page. Well, Sunday Mirror, that is some high praise there. I'm not usually a cheat and look at the end kind of guy. All right, this one has a bookmark in it, but I haven't even started reading it, so I don't know why that's in there. Confess, Fletch! Here's a confession. I never saw the Chevy Chase Fletch movie. I did see the one with, what's his face? John Hamm. I knew it would come to me. I like the John Hamm movie. Maybe this book is like that. Maybe this is not like that. There are 8 gazillion other Fletch books, but this will be my first one. Mr. Fletcher, you say you fly into a strange city, go to an apartment you're borrowing, and first night there you find a gorgeous naked girl you've never seen before, you're late murdered in the living room rug. Maybe this is what that movie was based on. And now I already know how it ends. If it ends the same way as the movie. Yeah, this looks like the same thing. Well, look, I know what you're thinking. Benjamin, you know how this ends, and you know how this ends, and you're still going to have fun reading both of them. You're right. It's not like this where, you know, I'm going to be peeking at the last page to find out how it ends. I know how those end. What was that study that came out? Boy, this came out, I'm betting 20 some years ago, that suggested that spoilers actually make a piece of media more enjoyable for the viewer, that you want to know how it ends, and so you enjoy the ride more. I don't know. Make way for murder. Is A.A. Marcus, isn't that a pen name of someone? Of the assignment guy? Assignment series guy? I don't know. But it's a graphic. You know I love graphics. If it's not a gold medal I'm reading, it's a graphic I'm reading, or any other paperback. But I have a lot of affection for gold medal and graphic. A deadly dame and a silver skull. She had the kind of beauty no man could resist, even an icy, veined private eye. Trouble was, Juanita Toy gave Peter Hunter more than her warm, exotic flesh. Her gifts included money and a murder rap. Flesh, money, and murder. Maybe Pete should have stuck to less dangerous women like gorgeous Pat Lane. So big and so willing, so blonde all over. That way he would only have had to lick the gangster Moretti, the copper Hoogan, the killer old Phineas, and his hatchetman Ramon. But Pete's stake in the game was far bigger than murder. He was playing for love, for glory, and for keeps. Dig this back illustration there, huh? What do you think of that? Guns and a glare. He's giving the girl in the bed. This one has a private eye. Did it not say? Peter Hunter. I read 2 books this month, which is July, and as you booktubers know, it's supposed to be Private Eye July. And I was excited that I could share them, but then I realized that the characters really weren't private eyes. They were just people who were solving mysteries that were not involved with the law, but their job was not private eye. They weren't, they weren't a private investigator. So I guess I can't count those. Maybe I can count Make Way for Murder if I polish it off before the month is over. Speaking of Make Way for Murder, here's Mecca for Murder, which at one point in time cost $2. Here's that Chester drum again. This is a Stephen Marlowe gold medal. I was wearing a shroud that clung with the itching tenacity of a cast-off mistress. Well, if that doesn't tell you how that shroud clung, I don't know what will. This book is in sad shape. Look at that puppy. I paid less than $2 for it. I was, boy, oh boy, this one, that's had to have spent some time in someone's pocket. Probably not in the city of Mecca. 7 Lies South. This is a Crest book. This one also has the desert. Well, you can see right here, I suppose you already saw the camels. Because when you see this cover, the first thing your eye is drawn to is the camels. You put a pretty fancy price on your body, Beecher said. And I've always got it, she replied. Someone's confident that beauty doesn't fade. Yada, yada, yada. She turned and ran into the silver wastes of the desert. Against the moon-bright horizon, 2 shadowy figures rose up and came toward her. Sounds almost like one of those weird white slavery movies, exploitation movies from the 70s. The Saracen Blade. This is by Frank Yerby, and I have been kind of wanting to try some Frank Yerby. He was an African-American author who decided to write historical fiction about underdogs. Pietro di Donati had only his magnificent good looks and his razor-sharp sword to enable him to rise in the violent, strife-torn world of the 13th century. From the towering castles of Italy to the blood-soaked soil of the Holy Land, men knew and feared his name. All right. An epic saga of raging battle and fierce lust, with a hero as powerful and passionate as his colorful and tumultuous age. Nice cover painting, huh? We focusing there? Get that. Who did that? Does it say? Did you write it in there, Dell, who did the art? Of course not. We'll never know. We'll never know. Clifton Adams, Two Gun Law. I love Clifton Adams. The best Western I ever read was by Clifton Adams. So I'm looking forward to reading this. It is in woeful condition. I mean, first few pages are falling out here. So I'm going to have to tip those back in. I think the whole cover's coming off. Sister Mary Frances. Good thing I was trained in some remedial book conservation techniques. If not, I'll just call my friend Karen, who does it for a living. How would you restore a perfect bound book from 1954? And she probably say I wouldn't. 1594 I'd care about, but 1954, who cares, Benjamin? Well, I care, Karen. Look at this. My first beacon. The Doctor's Wife. This actually does not look like a great story, but I thought I can't pass up a chance to own a Beacon book. Park Pickup. She sat on a faded green bench. I sat down next to her. She spoke first in a calm, dead voice that seemed 1,000,000 years old. Well, now that's a sexy way to describe someone's voice. Sounded 1,000,000 years old. I want you to make love to me. How would a voice that's 1,000,000 years old sound? I want you to make love to me. Ugh. All right, I said. Let's skip this back of the book dialogue and go right to the description. Here's a novel with a unique twist. A novel that dares to probe the shadowy operations of doctors without morals. We know about doctors with no borders. This is doctors with no morals. The Doctor's Wife by Michael Avallone. Avallone? He did some mysteries, didn't he? Didn't he do like The Tall Dolores? Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Money Shot. Ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom, ba-dum. This is a hard case crime one by, who is it? Krista Faust. And I've heard good things about this, that it feels like an older book. And so showed up at the shop. I said, yes, I'm going to do it. Now look at this. I'm excited about these. Not actually to read them, but just to look at them. Here is the man in the brown suit. And I got cards on the table. I love the cover art to these Agatha Christie novels. I am not a huge Agatha Christie fan. I've read 2 books and 1 short story. One book I enjoyed, another book left me feeling unsatisfied, and I felt that way about the short story too. But I love this art. I can't get enough. This is by, I think his name is Thiessen. It's not written in here. Dell, shame on you. But I think the artist's name was Thiessen. And I am no doubt going to do a profile on him. Dell had him painting mystery covers for decades, and sometimes he even did the same book more than once. I think some of these Agatha Christie books he did 2 or 3 times, and did completely different covers for each one. I absolutely adore this cover painting. They're kind of like still lifes of clues and stuff like that. And look at that fantastic wallpaper he's got there, and the patterns on the textiles, and oh, sumptuous. Great stuff. A friend of mine was going to France, and she said, you want anything from France? And I knew of a used bookseller on eBay and who was selling sort of lots of vintage paperbacks. And so I said, what if I send one of those lots to where you're staying? And she said, okay. So I got 5 books from this French seller. Hold Back the Sun, gold medal. This is by John Vale. She had known the hell of the death camp at Auschwitz, and she had learned to reckon the cost of liberty in blood. She was Israeli, and Israel needed guns to fight their enemies, guns to hold a freedom newly won. Well, this isn't topical today. By day they fought, by night they loved. Hold back the sun. Maybe that's why they want to hold back the sun, because as soon as the sun comes up, the loving stops and the fighting starts. I can understand that sentiment. Speaking of fighting, here's another gold medal. Warriors Away. Well, I thought this was a World War World War II book because of the helmet. But look, they kind of got soldier dudes from all different eras on here. So what is that about? Revealing an outspoken novel by Webb Beach. Dare I read the back? Captain Carter was a combat soldier. He won his bars on the battlefield, but the Army would never accept him as a gentleman. He had a distressing weakness for other men's wives. And even worse, his father had been only an enlisted man. Morally and socially, Captain Carter was below the salt. But this was wartime. Okay, so maybe it is World War II. Maybe that guy in the old-timey soldier outfit is his dad or grandpa. This was wartime, and a man like Carter simply couldn't be ignored. He knew how to kill Germans. He knew how to lead men. And he knew how to stay alive. And he also knew one other thing, just as important. He knew how to please a woman. Well, I suppose if there's things that you're going to know about, those do come in handy. This is one that Nick from Book Graveyard had at one of his most recent book hauls. The SOBs. Give me all your SOBs. A novel based on the combat history of World War II's most daring Navy pilots, the hell-raising aces of the Fighting 17th. I've been watching, it's a bunch of old black and white British World War II movies on Netflix. I watched this one about fighter pilots, and it spent way too little time in the planes. Way too much time on ground healing from crashes, or it starts with this plane crashes into a house, and the man of the house looks up at the pilot and offers him a cup of tea. So talk about your stiff upper lip. So I don't know if the SOBs will be like that. But it is a taut high-tension novel based on the war diary of the Navy's Skull and Crossbones Squadron. So maybe it'll be a little bit more exciting than guy getting offered tea after he crashes into a house. And this one also happens in the Pacific, so these are going to be American pilots. This one, all these ones from the French guy are pretty beat up. I think that they were probably found in a basement or something. A Stretch on the River. This is supposed to be sort of a comedic Americana kind of book. Don't miss this uproarious story of a riverboat men and the riverboat women. A brawling, bouncing trip up the Mississippi packed with belly laughs and salty adventure. Well, the Mississippi is a freshwater river, so how salty can it be? I mean, these guys do look pretty salty. Those are some salty dudes. A Signet Books. Good reading for the millions. Now this one, unfortunately, there's some serious damage to the cover. I don't know if someone was trying to sandpaper it, but it's The Naked Eye. Now, I know what you're thinking. Benjamin, she's not naked. You're right. You're right. There's a flaw in either the title or the cover. She was a scandal. Every man in Hollywood admitted Maggie was the hottest thing to hit the screen in years. A bedroomy novel about a Hollywood newspaper man who gets mixed up in a very close way with a rising starlet, says Saturday Review. You notice that there is no mention of the quality of the book, just what the plot is. Thank you, Saturday Review, for not letting us know what to get ready for. Complete and unabridged, so it's not gonna skimp on any of the risque action. And look at this. It's unfortunate that there's, whoever it was sandpapered this book, because now I'll never know what this says here. Just something, 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 every man's secret. What about every man's secret? She knew every man's secret. She was every man's secret. I wish French people would take better care of their trashy American novels. Another friend went to America and said, "Is there anything you want from there?" And I said, "Yes. I want two things. One, can you bring me a bottle of Plockman's mustard? And two, if I send you some books, will you bring them back?" I just sent her 3. Now, normally I don't read the books before I do a book haul. I feel like that's cheating. And so none of these books I have read yet, but this one I did read. The Last Lap by William Campbell Galt. I have plans for this book, for a video involving this book. This is about a teenager who starts becoming a NASCAR racer. And it takes place in, I think it's the 70s. 72 was when this book originally was published. And let me tell you, NASCAR was a completely different animal than what it is today. And it was really kind of cool. I am not a race car guy. I take my sons to car shows, and I do like looking at the old muscle cars and some of the real fancy things from the 50s and 60s with the huge tail fins and the fancy leather and all that stuff. That lost art of car design. But I never sat down and watched NASCAR or Indy 500 or any of that F1 racing. I didn't care. But I kind of cared about this kid and how he would do in this race. This is actually a book for kids. It's juvenile fiction. Galt wrote sort of mysteries and sports books for adults, but then also wrote sports books for kids. And he said actually he made more money on the kid books than the adult books. So he later on in life, that's what he focused on. So anyway, I can say this is a cute little book, a quick little read, and astonishing how far NASCAR has come. All right. We got an ace double here with 2 of my favorite authors. Here we got Thomas B. Dewey, Morning After. This is Singer Bat's story, I think, Morning After. I just finished reading a Singer Bat's story and am now reading a second Singer Bat story. That's actually one of my not really a PI July reads, and they were a lot of fun. Singer Bat's is this. He owns a hotel. He inherited it from his family, but he's just an old man and a Shakespeare scholar, and all he wants to do is sit and read books all day and discuss academic topics with other professor types. But the manager of the hotel, Joe Spinder, keeps pulling Singer Bat's in to solve murders that happen, around the hotel or involve people that visit the hotel and stuff like that. Very enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And here on the other side is another favorite author, Day Keene, Death House Doll. She was safe only in the shadow of the chair. What does that mean? Like the electric chair? This chair? I guess I'll find out when I read Death House Doll. Now, there's a little personal note. Every Friday, I go out to dinner with my family. That's a family tradition, and it has now become the family tradition that when we come home from going out to eat, we sit down and watch an episode of the Rockford Files. Love it. I love the Rockford Files. I never watched it as a child. I remember that it would come on TV, in syndication, but I it wasn't anything I was interested in as a kid. There were no dinosaurs or monsters or robots. Those were kind of the requirements for getting my attention as a kid. But there were some Rockford Files books that were written by this Stuart Kaminsky, and I got this one. I think he did two, and this is the first one, The Green Bottle. This originally came out in hardcover and had a picture of Rockford on it, a nice picture of James Garner. You would never know unless you saw this, the Rockford Files. But just looking at this, it doesn't scream Rockford Files. It actually, screams 80s glitz, which is not Rockford Files at all. I think it was Mystery and Mayhem who read these and pointed these out in one of his book hauls and inspired me to seek this out. And I'm looking forward to it. There's got to be some J-turns in here, right? You always know every episode of Rockford, he's going to get into a fist fight. There's going to be a car chase, and maybe in that car chase he's going to do a J-turn. That's probably my young son's favorite part is the car chases and the J-turns. And maybe that's one of my favorite parts too. Actually, I like everything about it. Last book. This is not vintage. The text is vintage, but the book itself is not. You can see because it's big. My buddy Mike and I have decided that 4 times a year we're going to try and do a buddy read. And so we're going to do a buddy read of Imaro by Charles Saunders. I don't love this cover, but it's okay. You can tell that this is a modern version. I think this is a UK cover. Oh yeah, it's written in pounds in the back, the price. Forsaken outcast warrior, a writer of vivid and thoughtful fantasy, said Scott Lynch, whoever that is. But it's on here, so it must mean something. He must be a man of note. So that's it for this book haul. Have you read any of these books? You have some opinions on their authors? Which book do you think I should read first? Which book do you think I should never read? Just put it on the shelf and admire the spine. Let me know your thoughts down below. And I thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.